Thank you, George. I think I saw her come in. Karla, where are you? Ah, Karla Johnson. Cook, singer extraordinaire. Karla is going to read a speech to us by Bob Raymer. Bob Raymer, after Yogacharya passed, we went through a time of feeling very having loss and feeling somewhat lost and shaky. And eventually Bob Raymer came up. Myself, because of the way things were going on at the ranch at that time, I also was going through a lot of loss. My dad died, Yogcharya died, all kinds of things happened. And I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna lose the ranch too. So I was saying to myself, okay, steel yourself because you're gonna lose the ranch. You may lose the ranch. And then Bob came up, and he was controversial, but with some people, but he kept it going. He brought a lot of energy, and he kept the ranch going. And he's such a lovable man, and so I've always been deeply grateful to him. Should I tell more of this? Let's see. He was a close friend of Yogacharya Oliver's. He was a disciple of Yogananda's as well, right? He had his own retreat in Hawaii, how Yogacharya got him to leave Hawaii and come here. Those of you who've been here in the winter, that's a miracle as far as I'm concerned. He had been a minister of self-realization fellowship in Minneapolis, St. Paul, until his move to California to be close to Rajarsi Janakananda, the second president of Self-Realization Fellowship. Let's see, what else? Dayamata, when he passed, Dayamata wrote a letter to, mentioning a lot of the people that she knew in Golden Lotus and giving her condolences. Yogacharya Oliver left his board of directors only 2 specific directives in his last will and testament concerning the development of the retreat. One of them, the founding of a World Brotherhood colony, now known as Clear Light Community, was accomplished during Bob Raymer's lifetime. Bob is a very important part of the legacy of the Song of Morning Ranch, and this talk was given in 1998. Thank you, Pamela.
Well, thank you I still consider myself a little bit of a newbie because you guys have set the foundation for this place. And I honor and acknowledge that and being a part of that, and to Carol for allowing me to read this. And one of the things, I don't hear a lot about Bob Raymer. And when I'm talking to Yogacharya and all the rest of them, I'm like, okay, where's this guy? What did, I know he did something and all that, but you don't hear stories like you hear Yogacharya's stories. And I'm like, I need to know a little bit about you. You need to come, or I'll get to you however we meet. So when Carol asked me to read that, I was like, oh, well, I get to know a little bit about you. So thank you for this opportunity. When I first met Master Paramahansa Yogananda, there were certain people that he wanted me to meet. One of them was Dr. Lewis, who was one of his close disciples. Another one was George Gay, another close disciple. Then there was Oliver Black. I remember when he was talking about George Gay, I said, well, George lives down in Milwaukee. That's a long way from Minnesota. Master said, fly your airplane down to Milwaukee and just meet George Gay. I said, all right, Master, I'll do that. So I did. Then the next one on my list was Oliver Black. It just so happened that time I was doing a lot of business in Detroit. Every month I'd have to go down to Detroit for a conference there. The first time I went, I called Oliver Black and I told him that I'd like to meet him and I'd like to come to Detroit. So when I went over there, I was surprised because he met me at the airport. I don't think I told him where I was going to come in, but he met me at the Detroit City Airport. And I was really flabbergasted when he did that. Then I remember we picked up my bags and we put them in the car and we started driving along, and I felt very uneasy when I was driving with him. He had a funny way of driving. I don't know if you have driven with him, oh my God, we're going to have an accident. It was just terrifying. After a while, he said, you know, smoking is not a good thing for yogis. Smoking gets in your psychic body and it poisons your whole system. Even one cigarette can destroy cells in your body. And he said, sooner or later, anyone who smokes is going to have to give it up if he wants to follow the path of yoga. I thought to myself, since I've been smoking for quite some time, how does he know that? I finally figured out that he could probably smell that I've been smoking cigarettes. Boy, he just spent the whole time going back to his home on Parkside telling me about cigarettes. It took years after that, maybe not too many years. I remember one time I was at a retreat in Sedona, and this lady came up to me and she wanted to quit smoking. And would I help her quit smoking? I said, sure, I'll help you quit smoking, no problem. Give me all your cigarettes. So she gave me all her cigarettes and I put them in my suitcase. When I got back to Maui, I started smoking those cigarettes and I was smoking again. But I remembered all the time what Mr. Black said about cigarettes, that they'll really destroy part of your psychic system if you smoke cigarettes. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but I believe it. I think that's really a possibility that could happen to somebody. Many things like that happen with Oliver. We would always go out to SRF congregation together. When we get there, there would be certain people he wanted to see. One of them was Rishi Griwal. He was a great yogi. He had disciples in Pennsylvania, and Oliver told me that story that Rishi Griwal would teach these miners, and they'd go down in the mine shaft and they would do Mahamantras. I was thrilled because Rishi Griwal really knew the principles of yoga. Oliver would tell me, you know, he sits on his bed, and when he sits on his bed, he just starts levitating like this. So I really became excited about the fact that, boy, I'm going to meet Rishi Griwal. Maybe I can get some secrets from him, learn how to meditate and all that sort of thing. This was 25, 30 years ago. So during the convocation, we decided to go up to Santa Barbara to meet Rishi Griwal. I look forward to a whole afternoon of talk about the principles of yoga and all the secret techniques. And also, Rishi Griwal had a cave, and that kind of intrigued me because the yogis have caves, and they learn how to meditate in there, and they're quiet and so on. So we got to Santa Barbara, and we went out to see Rishi Griwal's cave. When we got out there, well, you could call it a cave, I guess. It was carved out of rock in the side of a mountain. You walk in there and it had a rug that was better than this. It was not what you would call an aesthetic life that Rishi Griwal was living. But Oliver was really excited about seeing Rishi again. So they got to talking about oil structures. Oliver Black was just really fascinated with oil structures. Rishi said, I've got this instrument that can detect any oil structure. This is a cinch. You can do it. I'm going to give it to you. So sure enough, he went into the closet and got this box, opened the box, and he showed Oliver how to use this thing. There went the whole afternoon talking about oil structures. We never did get to talk about yoga or any of the things that I really wanted to listen to. Then we thought, we've got to try this thing out somewhere. I was talking to Mr. Lynn one day and I said, you know, Rajarsi, Oliver has this instrument that he guarantees that you'll find oil with if you use it properly. So Rajarsi said, oh, very good, very good. So we flew out to Texas. I don't remember the place that we went, but I do remember when we landed at the airport in Texas, it hadn't rained there for almost a year and everything was dry. It was just as dry as could be. We were talking to the airport manager and Oliver said, you know what? This place is going to have so much water in another day, you won't believe it. We thought it couldn't have any water. Sure enough, about a day later, it started to rain. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained. And we couldn't even get the airplane hardly out of the hangar. It was stuck in the mud. We finally pulled it out, and the only way that we could get out of there would be to put the airplane on the highway. So we put the airplane on the highway. And this Hans, he was with us. He was just the one who knew how to use this instrument. He sat in the back. He was great. Great, big, heavy fella. I didn't think we would ever get off the ground with this thing, and we flew out of there. But it was always exciting. Everything that happened that we did together. When I come to Detroit, he'd take me out to his house. I tried to come on a Thursday because that was the day we'd have the SRF service at the Art Institute. In the afternoon, before we went down to the Art Institute, we'd always go to the Newsreel Theater. I thought, boy, this is a great thing because I love sitting next to Oliver because he had such a great energy. When I'd sit with him, you could just feel that energy that he had, and it was such a blessing. I thought, oh boy, this is my chance to be quiet with him. We sit there, and then we go to the Art Institute in the late afternoon and get ready for the service that evening on Thursday. There were so many things like that that we went through. When we travel in the airplane, we'd be flying along, and he'd say, Bob, 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 look, look, look. I'm going to go out there and sit on the wing for a while. I say, oh, Oliver, that's great. I'd always let it go. There was a whole series of things like that that happened with Oliver. Flying with him in the airplane was great fun. There were really special days that we had together. Fortunately for me, I spent almost a year or 2 years coming to Detroit every month, once a month, to attend these business meetings. And I spent a lot of time with Oliver Black. We talked about so many things. We had so many experiences together. I remember the naming of this place. I came out here with him before he bought this ranch, and we were wondering what he was going to do with it because he had Cranberry Ranch up in another part of the state, and he didn't need another yoga retreat center. So he didn't even think about a yoga retreat center in those days. He says, Bob, we're going to have a yoga retreat center up here in northern Michigan. And I said, we are? He says, yes, we are. We're going to name all those roads. We're going to have Samadhi Boulevard, Karma Avenue, and all this sort of thing. I thought, this guy is really pissed out or something. But sure enough, we got up here, and shortly after that, he bought this ranch. Then the next thing we wanted to do was get a name for it. He called it the ranch, which is what we call it anyway. So he came out about 4 o'clock in the morning one day when I was staying in the house, and he didn't even knock on the door. He just opened the door. He just said, I've got the name, I've got the name. The name is Song of the Morning. He was so excited. He was just jumping up and down. He was just beside himself when he did that. The thing that I always appreciated with Oliver Black was just being in his energy flow. You just could be like a sponge when you were with him. You just feel that flow coming into you. He truly was a master, you know. He was just a half-baked master. No, he wasn't just a half-baked master. But he was a full-baked master. And by Jove, he really had the self-realization. Another thing that happened was really interesting. He was interested in architecture because we were envisioning all these different things for the ranch. We had ideas of getting Frank Lloyd Wright to lay out the whole program here. One day, I think we were on the way to California at that time, that we were going to visit Frank Lloyd Wright, and we stopped at Madison. We went to this little restaurant, and we thought as we were driving over there, how are we ever going to get a hold of Frank Lloyd Wright or get to see him? So we went to the restaurant, and we were sitting there at the table. We had ordered our lunch, and we were trying to figure out how in the deuce how we were going to see this guy. We tried to find out where his place was, but we couldn't find anything in the telephone book. We didn't know how to get a hold of him. As we were sitting there, I saw Oliver look at me. His eyes were as big as saucers, and he said, look around. And there was Frank Lloyd Wright sitting there at another table. Then we had to figure out how are we going to get over there to get a hold of him. Then we figured it out. We'll write him a note. Frank Lloyd Wright got the note. The waiter took it over to him, and Frank Lloyd Wright invited us to come out for the whole afternoon. Then he invited us to go to Taliesin West. We spent a lot of time doing that. It was just that everything was exciting. It seemed like just an exciting, miraculous time to be with him. I've never lost the feeling that I had in the beginning when I first met Oliver Black. He is truly one of the great masters. Every one of you has a beautiful story about him and has felt his power and love and his ecstasy. What did he used to say? Be happy, be full of joy, and stay out of debt.
Thank you, Karla. That was beautifully read. You have so much personality. You put so much personality into it. Karla's the current head of our kitchen, if you don't know also. Who do we have next? Next we have